Okay, and we're back with Scott Morris, and we want to just ask you a couple questions about just you started, or where I first knew you from is from Crit Happens, and just the website and the videos that you put up.
As long as it's not the post office wall, that's good.
That's right. So, but you're still doing that,
yes.
even with all the other things that you're doing.
Yeah, not as much, obviously, right? So when I started, like, Crits Happen, it was a hobby project. It was the love of board gaming and the love of gaming in general.
Yeah.
And for me, it all kind of started with the idea of I'm a firm believer in this statement. If you get a good game with good people around a table, good things happen. And I believe that as much as we like putting our heads down and playing on our phones and playing on our devices, that doing this is a big thing. And interacting with people and talking to people is a big thing. And it brings people a lot of joy, especially with gaming, right? When you sit down with gaming, it doesn't matter what your upbringing was, what your religious backgrounds and beliefs are, what your culture is, what your race is, what your hairstyle is, whatever it is, you're gamers. And everyone's equal around the gaming table. And I love that, right?
Yeah.
So it started as a way for me to just kind of share that passion with everybody. I would take games that I really liked or games that I had questions about, start to do video reviews of them. And then in late 2013, beginning of 2014, when I actually came into the industry, like working in the industry, I kind of had to like take a step back, and I had to look at it and go, okay, so now at the time I was vice president of Arcane Wonders, and absolutely love Mage Wars, and I was like, pitching this game and promoting this game, and I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, if I do this as a living, and I happen to review a game that I don't like, even as genuinely as me not liking it would be, it could be perceived as biasness or competitiveness and things like that, right? So I kind of started to pull back from that, right?
Makes sense.
And really, it's kind of funny, I haven't actually reviewed, like Dr. Evil air quotes, reviewed a game since the end of 2013. But what I decided to do was make it more about discussions. So I started this thing called the Critical Question of the Day. And I started things where I would post short, little, like 1 minute, 2 minute videos about, hey, this is something going on and what do you think? Like the Barnes & Noble's thing that started earlier this year where they did game nights in their store. I was like, what do you think? If you're a retailer or if you're a site or if you're a fan or, what do you think about these things? Because it's such a huge community, and even though the event that we could be talking about could be perceived as awesome by the majority of people, there's still going to be people who have a counterpoint to that, right? So I thought, how cool would it be to kind of turn Crits Happen into that community type thing of get people talking about their opinions on what's going on and counter opinions to that and stuff like that. So yeah, still doing it, but just more on the discussion side than on the actual review side.
And I was thinking, one of my follow-up questions was going to be, how has getting into the industry on that level kind of changed your relationship with the hobby, and that you just kind of answer that. Like,
well, the funny thing is this: if you're watching this and you are a board game publisher, like I am now, please stop sending me games. There are 1 or 2 people who I have told, please don't send me any more games because I'm not going to review them, and yet I still get a random box. Which is kind of weird. I think that's because
Sean, don't send them that game.
Yeah, right. There's like websites you can go to and they'll list reviewers. I think they still have me listed as a reviewer, right? So, but it's affected me in the terms of I've reviewed a lot of games prior to getting in the industry, so it helped me know a lot of people in the industry already, just having worked with a lot of the marketing and a lot of the salespeople previously outside of that. I also did things very differently. And this is not good or bad, it was my process. When I reviewed a game, I made point to actually reach back out to that company and tell them, hey, I reviewed the game, here's the links, here's what I thought, here's what was good, and here's what was bad, right? And I didn't necessarily always talk about all the bad stuff in the videos, but I did always make a point to bring that up to them. And I think that they kind of appreciated that, and I think that they appreciated the fact that, A, I didn't make a video that seemed to rail on their game if there was something that was a concern, but touched on it, and then I took the time to bring it up to them, right? But it did definitely change, right? Because like I said, there's something that always was in the back of my mind. I don't know what you think about this, but in the back of my mind, whenever someone gave me a game to review, there was always something in the back of my mind of, is anyone going to perceive this as I'm reviewing this game positively just because I was given a copy of the game.
Right.
Right. I remember when I first started Crits Happen, I went to Gen Con, and it was 2011 or 2012 or something like that. And I was with Rodney Smith from Watch It Played, and we were doing a video for Smash Up. And Rodney's channel was just starting to take off, and everyone was in love with Watch It Played. And we did this great kind of Smash Up introduction of a live Watch It Played between our two sites. And we won't talk about who won. Because we never filmed that. Love you, Rodney. And then afterwards, we go up and we're talking with some of the guys from the company. And this one guy who is not part of the company now, but at the time, literally showers Rodney with games. Like he's like, here, dude, like take these games, right? And I don't know if you're gonna review them or not, but take these games. And like Rodney's like, you know, like weighed down like with like 8 games. And I could tell it was this moment where he goes, this is my friend Scott. Like he does game reviews too, right? Sure. And the guy's like, hey, what's up? You know? And it's like, that was it, right? And thankfully that guy doesn't work there anymore, which is fine. But it was funny because part of me, we had that discussion. I was like, do you ever feel like compelled, like you have to review these games? And he's like, yeah, because there's always, you know, that, you know, kind of borderline. And it always kind of bothered me in the back of my head of like, you know, if I give a game a glowing review, I want it to be because I love the game, right? I don't want it to be because someone gave me a copy of the game.
Yes.
And I like to think, and this is my personal opinion, I just like to think that the majority, not all, but the majority of reviewers are extremely above bar in this industry. Tom Vassell, Tim Norris, there's so many people that do reviews and do them very well, and you can tell. And I'm a big believer in this, right? Like, you know, our discussions and everything we've been talking about here at the show here, you can tell when someone's genuine about something and when they're just going through the motions, right? If you watch a reviewer and you get the feeling that you think that they've only read the review book and they're just talking about the game, you can tell, versus watching another reviewer review the same game and that person's like, you know, very energetic and very excited about it, and you're like, oh, okay, they've internalized it, right? They've played that game and internalized it and brought it out. So yeah, it definitely, you know, it changed the way I thought about things and how I approach things, and you know, at the end of the day, just keep it above bar, right?
Did you ever get to that point where you're either typing the email or you're even providing feedback maybe for the designer, and you're like I know this isn't going to be well received, but I got to be honest. You know,
both directions actually.
Oh, really?
Receiving and sending.
You've been on both sides.
So
does that give you a perspective now when you're doing that? Like
greatly.
Because we've tried to be gentle even with our emails, because you know, that kind of thing and feedback, and then knowing that, you know, this is their baby, this is something that they've in their mind, this is the best game ever.
Always.
And so we understand that because our games are the best game ever too. You know, but I guess that is a unique perspective that you have. As being on both sides.
I've been on both sides of the table, so to speak. Right? Yeah, it's interesting. I have had to write a couple of harsh letters, not harsh like with the intent of being harsh, but just harsh with being direct about, you know, hey, this isn't good, right? There was a game that I got
in hopes of always making maybe them a better game designer.
Right,
I mean, that's the intention.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm a rip the band-aid off guy. Like you know, somebody, you know, that sucks. Cool. Tell me that sucks, right? Like I don't want anyone to sugarcoat it. There was a game that I had gotten, and I won't mention what it was or what the company was, but there was a game that I got from an overseas company, probably about 3 years ago. And it was gorgeous. Like I looked at it and I got it and I'm like, my goodness, this game is just like, the artwork is over the top beautiful, right? And then the fanboy in me was like, God, I really want this game to be good. Like I really want it looks good. I really want the game to be good. And we played the game, and my friends and I are sitting there and we're like, so yeah, this is like Thunderstone. Exactly like Thunderstone. We're like, yeah, and we're like, wow, right? Now part of us were like, okay, you know, we don't want to think that someone just like maliciously copied something, right?
Yeah.
So we were like,
the doubt and that kind of thing.
They're overseas. Thunderstone's primarily America. Maybe they didn't see each other, right? So we took the time to write to them, and I told them in a letter, I'm like, you know, look, not only like your mechanics, but like your process and all this is exactly like this other game, which is a great game and has already got a lot of success, and the designer's really popular. I mean, all this stuff. if you go to market with this, you're going to have a problem, and I would have a problem reviewing it, because even if I said I liked the game, the first thing anyone and their brother is going to say is, dude, you're playing Thunderstone, right? So, and they unfortunately received that very poorly.
Really?
They came back with, I can't believe you would accuse us of this, and this isn't our intent, and the game is very different, and at that point you just have to be like, okay, I gave my feedback,
because the perception didn't quite come across the way.
But I've had it happen to me too. I mean, so I've designed my own game. I've made Firefly Shiny Dice, and you'll hear it from me before you hear it from anybody else. I made that game for a specific type of player. It is not a casual pick-up, roll your dice game. It is a thinky. You're going to want to be an alpha gamer. You're going to want to be someone that loves Firefly. It is a niche type kind of product, right? But for the people who love that type of stuff, they love it. And I've had so many people come back to me saying, man, I love how all these pieces work together with this character does this to this character does that. These mission cards do that to this guy. And it's like they love that connection, and they love the deeper thinking than just roll your dice and know what you're going to do, right? A good majority of press your luck dice games have the problem, I feel, of the first 1 or 2 turns are very boring, right? You roll your dice and you know exactly what your decisions are. And I wanted to make something that was a little harder, right? And it actually spawned from that. My son and I were playing zombie dice, and he goes, you don't get shotgunned on turn 1. I'm like, no, you don't. He goes, you don't really get shotgunned on turn 2. I'm like, no, and he's like, we should make this harder. I was like, okay, that's kind of where it kind of started, right? So, but I've had people on the flip side of that, both who love Firefly and don't love Firefly, just destroy me in emails, right? Like I had one guy send me an email on BGG that the subject was, I hope you die in a fire. And I opened it up and I was like, oh man. And I mean, kudos to this guy. If you're watching it, you know who you are. It was unbelievably passionate. No, I'm dead serious, right? This dude went through like 4 paragraphs of, this is why I don't like your game. Yeah, I read the whole thing, right? Because I wanted to, right?
Of course.
And how do you not, right? I mean, when somebody says go die in a fire as a subject line, like, what did I do, right? It's like, and some of his points were valid, right? And I remember reading it, and I'm like, wow. Like part of me was like, I got this guy so angry. Right, like I
in
did
a way
this
that could be
and
a
made
compliment.
this. Right, like it was funny.
In some kind
one of my friends actually said, he goes, "Well, he's passionate," and I was like, "Yeah." But I've also had people who were Firefly fans say to me, hey, this game is nothing what I expected, and I thought it would be more like dungeon roll or like zombie dice, and I'm a Firefly fan, but I'm not a deep gamer, so it wasn't my kind of thing. Sure. And that's cool, right? Like I want that. I know this. There is no game I publish with Passport, no game I make on my own, no game anyone makes that is one game for everybody. There's no one game, even the top of the line. Like if you go out onto BGG and you look at Pandemic Legacy as that #1 game, I don't like Pandemic Legacy. I respect it. I think it's a great game. It's not my cup of tea for what I want to play, right? Sure, yeah. And same thing, like what was it, like Twilight Struggle or whatever it was? It was the one that it usurped for the #1 place. Yes. Like that's a game. I know people that'll punch each other in the face over that game, right? So not one game is for everybody, and you got to be willing to kind of take your hits with your successes at the same time, right? So
awesome, yeah. And it's funny. Sean and I were talking in the interim. We were talking that we kind of need the camera rolling all the time. But Scott, you're such a wealth of experience in the hobby, and so we look forward to kind of getting to know you a little bit more and talking to you more. If you check out his, you'll have a website too, right? I mostly follow you on YouTube.
Yeah,
you do have a website. I've been on yes. Okay,
so we got critshappen.com, YouTube/critshappen, Twitter/critshappen, Facebook/critshappen. I'm not on Pinterest. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go there. So it's just not my thing.
And then be looking forward to more from coming from Passport Studios and all that as well. So we're really excited to see what happens next with you.
Thanks.
So am I. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it, guys. Yeah. Bye, meeples.